And the only reason I bring it up is really for the inspiration, because people tend to think that guys that are at the top of the world or the top of their game, world champs, they've won all kinds of things. They were just always that good, right? So you've walked a road, you've had to train. Obviously, you've got a massive natural ability that you discovered at an early stage in life. But there's a number of races that you've had where you've certainly had challenges, a couple of DNFs over the years. Um, but you come back and you bounce back from those. I mean, I've got athletes that have trained for their first ever race. It's a short one. They have a fall or they get an injury or they go in for an operation or something and the whole world comes to an end, you know, and you've got to try and build them up from that again. So perhaps you could give us, to me, those are learning experiences, you know, and how do you get the right mindset to take it as a learning and an advancement tool rather than a negative, like, oh shit, I didn't make that one.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one, and obviously for me, doing it as a professional is an added dynamic to it. That it's how I make a living. It's not just a hobby, but that's kind of what I've ended up doing, is taking my hobby and my passion and turning it into my job. So I'm very grateful on one end of it, but it also puts a lot more pressure on the events. Outside of just going out and competing and enjoying the physical nature of it. And I mean, ironically, that's probably what you should be focusing on, even as a professional. It's just the enjoyment factor, why you chose to do this in the first place, because it is just inherently a very difficult sport. And at the end of the day, there's generally, maybe a lot more sad stories out there than the one or two athletes who did well. So I do try to keep that like all relative in my mind. But yeah, more recently, I've actually had a lot more DNFs, which has been a pretty challenging thing to kind of navigate and overcome and refocus and, take the positives that you can from it and move forward. But yeah, I think it's just important to realize, or to like go back to the reason why you chose to do this in the first place. And just one bad result doesn't define you as an athlete or as a human being. And it's just a stepping stone to hopefully having some more successful races in the future. And yeah, I think it's a continuous battle that even I face from race to race, and whether it be sickness or injury or whatever was the reason that took you out. Hopefully you can learn the lessons that generally, when you look back in hindsight, there's always a few lessons that you can take from it, even if the race itself didn't go well, and hopefully use that in the preparation for your next event. I in 2023, I ended up getting a penalty on the bike during the race at the Ironman 70.3. The Ironman World Championships in Nice. I was lying in third position during the bike leg, and we were going up a really big climb, and like sort of the switchback section of the course, I got a little bit too close to the athlete in front of me, and the referee believed that I was committing a drafting infringement and gave me a penalty. A blue card at the time was a 5-minute penalty, like stand down penalty, and definitely threw my toys out the cot and wanted to just quit right there and then. I was having the best day of my life in the sport of triathlon, lying in a podium position at a world championship event, and got handed a penalty, and I very easily could have like lost it mentally and just decided, F this, I'm gonna stop and move on and do something else. But managed to kind of regroup mentally, and I served my penalty and got going again and fought my way back to seventh on the day. So I'm pretty proud of that, and looking back, it's something that I can be pretty proud of in my career, as opposed to if I decided to just stop and throw the towel, and it's probably something I would have regretted to this day.
Oh, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head there again. It's one of the things I put across a lot when I sort of try to motivate people, is just remember the why when you're stuck or you can't anymore. And it's amazing how often that comes up, and especially with guys at your level of the sport, And by mentioning that, I certainly don't ask you that question to put you on the spot, because I know it's clear that a guy like you finds a way through every time. But people need to realize that that's just a human struggle everyone has. And you don't have to be anyone
Yeah,
elite to get
it's
through
certainly not
that.
any easier for us than it is for anyone else. I think some people look at the pro field and be like, oh, it's so easy for them. But it's definitely, we face the same challenges that the age group field face, and we just have learned to maybe navigate it in a better and more constructive way. But we still definitely have those mental challenges along the way to to the small little success highlights that you see on Instagram.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, from my perspective, I would say, if anything, it could be a little harder, because you got that, as you say, it's what you do for a living. And there's a whole different dynamic to that, to you guys having to compete and complete. So, yeah, I would say it's probably a little harder to get back on that horse, so to speak. Yeah, so I'm going to scroll down on my laptop here because I made a couple of notes. I want to get it wrong here. So, and this may or may not be a correct quote, but something that I've highlighted here. So it says, and I know we touched on it earlier on. So Brad often talks about being humble, being motivated by growth rather than just wins, recognizing the sacrifices, the grind, and the community aspect of the triathlon. So, I mean, you covered all of that before, as well. And I think for the unlikely triathletes out there, it might be a bit of repetition on that one. But to me, those are like really good core values. When you put aside the training and the sport and the competition and the earning of the money and all that kind of stuff, I think it does. It all comes back down to that, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think mental health around the world is a big challenge at the moment, and a sort of a talking point. I think social media has got a massive influence on this as well, and people tend to get caught in this cycle of doom scrolling and watching everybody else's life pass by on social media platforms, and sort of judge themselves accordingly, and why they all having these amazing lives, why can't I? And if you can just put that away, take on something like a triathlon or a trail run or mountain bike race or something like that. Just focus on yourself for a little bit, and try and enjoy that stepping stone journey. Of the result is all good and well if you are up there and competitive with the front of the race. That's great, but in the end of the day, getting out there, waking up early when that alarm clock goes off for the race, and those pre-race nerves, it's kind of like it's kind of like a bit of the meaning of life in some ways. Of what else, why are you choosing to work the job that you do, or earn the income that you do, or try and make a little bit more money, when you get those endorphins going during a race, the pre-race nerves and anxiety, the race itself, the physical aspect of it, and pushing yourself to beyond physical boundaries that you thought you had, and completing the race with everybody has a few war stories at the end of the day to tell of the adversity that they faced during the race. And you go to bed that night feeling that you accomplished something for the day, which I think is a massive positive, a net positive, regardless if the race went well or not. You chose to take on the challenge, and I'm sure you learned a lot about yourself along the way. So yeah, I try and encourage as many people to get involved in sport, whatever that sporting challenge may be. It doesn't have to be triathlon; it can be anything. But having those challenges to kind of test and bring a bit of adversity into your life is I think is a net positive.